Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining Scheller Lunchtime Live, a live stream series hosted by the Georgia Tech Scheller College of Business. My name is Coogan Perrin, and I'm the Assistant Dean for Executive Education here at Scheller. On select Fridays at 12 Eastern, you'll have the opportunity to hear faculty, student, and alumni speakers discuss relevant topics for the tech-driven digital age. At Scheller, we're proud to offer undergraduate, MBA, and executive education and PhD programs, as well as open enrollment and custom executive education programs. It is my pleasure to introduce you today to Dr. Alex Oettl and Dr. Jonathan Giuliano as they present why scaling technology-based ventures is hard, lessons from the Creative Destruction Lab. A little bit of background of our esteemed speakers before they jump in today. Dr. Alex Oettl is a professor of strategy and innovation at the Georgia Tech Scheller College of Business. He's the holder of the Dean's Distinguished Term Professorship, co-site lead of the Creative Destruction Lab Atlanta, and research associate for the National Bureau of Economic Research. He obtained his PhD at the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto in 2009. His research primarily focuses on economics of innovation, entrepreneurship, and science. His current work explores, how new breakthrough ideas are created and diffused by individuals, firms, and regions. Professor Oettl has received funding from the National Science Foundation, and he was the recipient of the 2014 Kauffman Junior Faculty Fellowship in Entrepreneurship Research. His research has been profiled in numerous international media outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Financial Times, Harvard Business Review, Nature, Science, The Atlantic, Wired, Business Insider, among others. He has presented his research at top institutions around the world. Very lucky to have him today. And next up, Dr. Jonathan Giuliano is the academic lead of CDL Atlanta, the Creative Destruction Lab site at Scheller College. CDL is an objective-based mentorship program for massively scalable seed stage science and technology-based startups. He is also the executive director and academic director of TIGER, which stands for Technology Innovation Generating Economic Results, a transdisciplinary technology innovation program bringing together students from Scheller and Georgia Tech's College of Computing, Engineering, and Sciences. TIGER students work with ventures across CDL Atlanta. Dr. Giuliano teaches graduate, undergraduate, and executive education students in strategy and innovation, including elective courses in technology innovation, corporate strategy, and strategy execution at Scheller. Today, Jonathan and Alex will provide insights into the challenging landscape of scaling technology-based ventures. They will draw from the Creative Destruction Lab's unique entrepreneurship program housed in the Georgia Tech Scheller College of Business, and they will discuss what sets it apart from other initiatives and why building these businesses is so complex. As always, feel free to ask questions in the comment section, and we will address them when their presentation is finished. Thank you so much, Alex and Jonathan, for being here today. And after that, I'll pass it over to you.
Great. Coogan, thank you for that lovely introduction. And it's great to have Jonathan here join me. We're just going to spend the next sort of 15, 20 minutes explaining this program, the Creative Destruction Lab, a program that we brought to the Scheller College back in 2019, end of 2019, early 2020, and that focuses on scaling, sort of deep tech companies that are building upon technologies at the scientific frontier. So, at a very high level, CDL's mission is to enhance the commercialization of science for the betterment of humankind. So this is quite grandiose ambition, but if one believes that science-based innovation, the types of ideas that typically stem and emerge from the top research universities around the world are often the primary drivers of improvements in living standards and the advancement of humankind, figuring out ways on how to more effectively commercialize these ideas, these scientific ideas, should be of utmost concern for every single individual interested in business. If we take a sort of a step back first and just look at the world and think about where these ideas that I just alluded to come from, top research universities all around the world. And imagine we had, for every single published paper that might turn into a commercial technology, we had a little, sort of stack. If we looked at this globe, we'd see a number of stacks all around the world. We'd see some here in Atlanta, where Georgia Tech exists, but where we also have other world-class research universities. We'd see a number in Europe. We'd see some in Africa. We'd see a lot in Asia. And yet, if we then shift to the second part, which is where ideas, these scientific ideas, are commercialized, we'd see a very different distribution. We'd see a really, really large pile emerging from the Bay Area, a smaller pile maybe from Boston and a number of other areas, New York, London. But there would be a large disconnect between where we observe the ideas that are the ingredients to commercial innovation and where those ideas are commercialized. And so the thesis of the Creative Destruction Lab, the big question is, why is that the case? Why is there a disconnect between where ideas are produced and where they're successfully commercialized? We believe that it is not the lack of ideas or capital or even effort. So it's not that there are just better ideas in the San Francisco Bay Area, or that there's more money, or that people work harder, that allows these ideas to really come to fruition. What we believe that the Bay Area actually has in abundance that many other regions don't is that there is high quality entrepreneurial judgment. And what precludes many regions from as effectively commercializing their scientific ideas is a failure in the market for high quality judgment. Let me explain what I mean by that with an example. Here we have an old email back January 17th, 1997, where a founder is speccing out a number of assumptions in turn to a business idea. What the costs might be that would be associated with running this particular idea, around $500,000 in costs. You can see that at the bottom, and a number of assumptions. The idea here is that they're thinking about maybe selling this idea to a company that many of you that are familiar with the early internet, Excite, which was a search engine, might be familiar with. And they lay out in 2 sentences or so what the lift in ad revenue might be if this technology were adopted, what the various sort of costs would be associated, but ultimately what the gain would be, around $7 million. We also see here in the corner someone named sort of Vinod providing some insight as to what the growth might look like for this particular industry, 2 to 4%. Innocuous at first, but we'll come back to this comment from Vinod. We also see, this is a profit and loss, right? You might think that this is something that a first-year MBA student might put together, looking at what the gains are to the company, what the potential downside is. We see that 7 million is greater than 2.3 in terms of sort of potential losses, and so this is a good idea if this technology goes to competitors. We also see a variety of proposals now put forward by this individual thinking about working on this business idea. They'll work full-time exclusively for Excite for about 7 months until August 24th. And August 24th, for those of you who are burners might be familiar with, this is when the Burning Man Festival starts. So this individual who's thinking about starting a business is very concerned about missing Burning Man and then wants to go back to university in the 1997 academic year, if they choose to. The mode of compensation, this is all from one email, is maybe we get paid cash for this idea, maybe we receive stock in Excite. Salary would be preferred by this entrepreneur who's put forward this idea. They prefer to get paid salary. Vinod, on the other hand, this individual Vinod pops up again and says, oh, maybe you acquire a company of ours which owns this technology instead. Now, many of you might be thinking, well, this wasn't that long ago. That was 26 years ago. Who these individuals are, that's Larry Page. Larry Page, the founder of Google, and the agreement he struck with Excite. What I want to take a step to reflect on is actually how rather straightforward this email exchange truly was. We think of the founders of Google, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, as having created one of the most important companies of all time without being overly hyperbolic. And yet they were thinking about just being employees for this company, licensing the technology, consulting on it, taking salary, but never thinking about starting a company. The individual who encouraged them to found a company was none other than Vinod Khosla, which for many of you who are, again, familiar with computing history, was the founder of Sun Microsystems and is now the founder of CDL Ventures, arguably one of the most venerable deep tech venture capitalist firms in the Bay Area. It was his judgment, his intervention, that arguably changed the arc of what Larry Page and Sergey Brin would have done. The Bay Area has this type of entrepreneurial judgment, the judgment that Vinod Khosla was able to espouse by way of his own experience in building a massive company that allowed Google to actually become Google. Many other regions do not have access to Vinod Khosla's, and as a result, many of the companies that are launched in regions outside of the Bay Area are not ever able to grow into their full potential. That is what the Creative Destruction Lab focuses on fixing. The way we do this is by bringing in individuals, mentors who have built massive companies themselves. They have developed that judgment. They have developed the ability to help new entrepreneurs, those that are building their own companies for the first time, prioritize what to focus on. The seemingly innocuous suggestion to form a company rather than license the technology or to work as a consultant can be the difference between a very good payout and creating a company that changes the world. The types of mentors we have in the program across the entire network are just that. We have actually the former CFO of Google, Patrick Pichette, who's a mentor out of the Oxford site. He's also the former chair at Twitter. Right now, I don't think Twitter or X has a board anymore, but Siobhan Zillis, who's also the office of the CEO at Tesla and Neuralink, our own Frank Blake, who's the former CEO of Home Depot and the chairman of Delta Airlines, Elizabeth Cayley, who was the COO of Meta before Facebook changed their name to Meta. She sold her company to the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. An individual like William Tunstall-Padot, who was the founder and CEO of EV, sold to Amazon, and is now a critical ingredient within the Alexa service, as well as Mark Gorlin, the founder of Cabbage, Roadie, and a number of other highly successful startups that have all sold for 100 million plus. We also have scientists, technical individuals that help our ventures, such as Christian Catalini, who is the co-creator of Libra, Facebook's former cryptocurrency, Raquel Erdison, who is the head of Uber's Advanced Technology Group. That is the group within Uber that is central to developing their autonomous vehicle program. An individual named Yoshua Bengio, who is considered, along with Jeffrey Hinton and Jan LeCun, the three of them share the Turing Prize in 2018, widely regarded as the Nobel Prize for computing, and are considered the godfathers of neural networks or artificial, the current incarnation of artificial intelligence, as well as a number of other scientists. So we have world-class business mentors as well as world-class scientists all coming together to help the ventures that come through our program. The way this is done, this is not a residency program. We don't have a really cool space or beanbag chairs or foosball tables or limitless or unlimited kombucha, although that would be nice. What we have is 5 full-day sessions that take place here on the Georgia Tech campus, as well as the other universities that have a creative destruction lab, where over a 9-month period, where after each day, each company that comes through our program, we typically have a cohort of 20 companies, receive objectives. And an objective is a priority of what that company should focus on over the next 8 weeks. Let me give you some examples of what those objectives are, because that is really what we've learned from the Creative Destruction Lab, the value in setting objectives and the types of objectives that our business mentors are able to provide to the ventures that might otherwise be very difficult to obtain. The Creative Destruction Lab has existed since 2012 at a variety of universities. And because this is an academic program housed at world-class research universities like Georgia Tech around the world, we also collect lots of data. And so we've categorized the objectives that our mentors have given to each of our ventures since 2012 in a variety of categories. And what you see here is that number 7 all the way at the bottom is raising money. And I hear this from many founders that they would be successful if only they had money. What we've seen in the Creative Destruction Lab is that lack of funding is often a symptom of not having planned effectively, or not having found product market fit early on, or having devised an effective go-to-market strategy. And so not having capital precludes one from building and scaling one's company. Having capital in and of itself doesn't necessitate success for these companies. It's the planning, it's the product market fit, it's the sales and marketing, it's the business development, it's the customer research that really is critical for these ventures. What's interesting about the Creative Destruction Lab is that these ventures come to Atlanta for one day every 2 months. And so if we look at these types of comments and objectives that are provided by our mentors, we can think about them in terms of 4 different broad meta categories, if you will. The first is really thinking about one's venture. Those are sort of thought ideas. This is where we can think of this as almost hypothesis generation. The second is experiment, which really is where one obtains data or validation. One then implements the results of those experiments, and then one obtains resources in order to effectively execute them. As you can see from the bar graph on the right here, at the very beginning of the program, session 1, the majority of the comments are actually around implementation, but the session in which thought objectives are greatest occurs in session 1. By session 2, which is 2 months later, there's much more implementation and resource allocation. And so what the CDL does for the companies that come through our program is, in very short term, founders are able to accelerate and increasingly focus on scaling their ventures through their thought process, experimentation, implementation, and subsequently obtaining resources. CDL operates all around the globe. It started at the University of Toronto in Canada, spread across Canada, went to Oxford, was one of the first sites that was international. There are now 4 universities that host a Creative Destruction Lab in Europe, 3 in the United States, us along with the University of Wisconsin-Madison, as well as the University of Washington, Seattle, and just a newly launched site at the University of Melbourne. By being part of a global network, we here at Scheller are able to draw upon the expertise of our global mentor community, but also gain access to ventures for our particular verticals that can come from all around the world. And indeed, we've had, last year alone, we had 675 companies across all the sites participate in the Creative Destruction Lab across those 13 sites. The impact of this program, too, has been quite large. Since the beginning of the program, the companies that have gone through the Creative Destruction Lab, many of them very early pre-seed, which means that they haven't raised a formal round of financing yet, have generated approximately $30 billion in equity value. We've had over 3,000 applicants from 87 countries all around the world, which feeds into the 675 ventures. As one can see on the right panel here as well, the majority of these companies are not profitable when they come in, but they are past the concept stage. So they've figured out their technology. They're trying to discern whether or not there's a real product there, moving from the prototype to validation, and then quickly moving to early revenue, which allows these companies to set themselves up for a formal raise by the end of the program. CDL enables investment from leading venture capitalists to the venture, and also allows students to participate in the program. I like to think of this as the operating theory of the way medicine was taught over a century ago. Many of and Jonathan Giuliano is going to sort of take over for me in a second, but I teach business strategy here at Scheller. I use case studies frequently. What is interesting about CDL is that we have a live case study. Of the 20 ventures that come through our program, we get to see them at 2-month increments, and we being the students and myself, and see how they've changed and really get to live and join them on their journey as they become massive companies. But Jonathan, maybe you can spend a little bit more time telling us about all the advantages that CDL has for our students here at Scheller.
Thank you, Alex. So yes, indeed, scaling ventures is extremely difficult, but students play an extremely important role in that process. Now, you heard Alex mention that every CDL site resides at a business school. And as you would expect then, there's a huge educational component. And the educational component puts MBAs with these ventures. So the CDL Ventures have embedded with them an MBA student. And the results are fantastic. And here's one example. Laurent was an MBA student at the University of Toronto Rotman Business School. As an MBA student, he was matched with a startup. This venture was really at the time little more than an idea with academic founders. And he did great work. He decided after earning his MBA in 2016, later that year, that he would join full-time. Within a few years, he became CEO. And as you can see, BenchSci has been extremely successful. It employs hundreds of employees now. And as you can see, the MBA student, former MBA student who worked with the venture has been successful and key to the success of this venture. So it just underscores this one example, how MBAs can really play a vital role with CDL Ventures. Next slide, please. So at Scheller College of Business here at Georgia Tech, the educational program is TIGER. TIGER is an acronym, Technology Innovation, Generating Economic Results. And in the TIGER program, we bring together MBA and PhD students. And CDL Atlanta through TIGER is the only CDL site that has PhD students participating. Now, the program for TIGER is 3 terms. It is a STEM concentration for MBA students, and it is a minor for PhD students and candidates from the College of Engineering, the College of Computing, and the College of Sciences here at Georgia Tech. Now, as I said, this is 3 terms. For the first half of those 3 terms, students work on their own projects and they learn the skills that are vital to their helping CDL Ventures. Then halfway through the program, students match with CDL Ventures, and they work with CDL Ventures on specific projects tied to the objectives set by mentors. Remember, Alex talked about how mentors help these ventures set objectives. Well, students work on projects associated with those objectives. More on that in a moment. But what's really important, we know to MBA and PhD students who are interested in early stage ventures, is building their network. And with CDL, there's a global network. Alex talked about the people who are in the room in CDL Atlanta, and this truly is a graduate education for our TIGER students. Next slide, please. So I'm going to anticipate one of the questions, which is, what projects do students work on? And as I mentioned on the previous slide, students work on projects that are tied to the objectives set by mentors and agreed by venture founders. And as you would expect, as you look through this list, these are tied closely to those objectives that Alex said frequently come up. For example, our TIGER students spend more than 3 credit hours of courses learning how to do customer discovery and actually doing it, practicing it extensively before they match with CDL Ventures. And then you can see the rest of the list. This list of 8 constitutes approximately 95% of the projects, but there are some other projects that do come up from time to time. Next slide, please. So this is our final slide, and we're going to open for questions. I hope that you have a strong sense of really how CDL does this through lowering the barriers of entry and really providing the highest performance that these ventures need and can achieve. So let's open up for questions.
So it looks like no questions yet, but I do have a question that might spur other questions from the audience. So if I'm a company trying to get into CDL, like what typically might be a reason that you might accept or deny my application?
That's a great question. I'll kick off that first, and then Jonathan, please build. If one's not full-time, one will typically be rejected. So these are past the project idea. These typically are already incorporated ventures, albeit small. If one is also working in an area without very strong technical expertise, and so we've seen just an explosion in AI-driven companies. A CDL company, though, will be someone who is at the frontier of developing these new technologies. And as an example, CDL has actually run one of the oldest artificial intelligence streams out of any program in the world. It started in 2015 when a number of students were applying to the program, calling themselves AI companies. And I thought, what's going on here? They were all students of a professor named Jeffrey Hinton, who just recently stepped down from Google, actually, for fear of his concern over LLMs. He ran Google's AI program, and it was his students that were pushing the frontier of computer vision at the time, and that then applied to CDL. And because of this insight, CDL quickly actually formed an AI stream the following year to accommodate those companies. But these are really individuals that are at the frontier of these technologies and domains.
Got it. That's helpful. Yeah, go ahead,
I would
John.
add to that what I found fascinating, because I have worked with startups for nearly 4 decades. What I find fascinating about Creative Destruction Lab is its focus on deep science, massively scalable ventures. And deep science is really key. Lots of great ideas coming out of universities, including Georgia Tech, and they're typically too deep for venture capitalists to touch or for other incubators to touch. So they have a start, as Alex mentioned, but it's an early start. And places, for example, like Y Combinator, terrific program, but these are ventures that are way before an incubator like Y Combinator would look at them. And when you look at those results that Alex showed, nearly $30 billion of market value attained over a comparable period, that is just amazing when you think about deep science and the massive scalability that CDL has been able to develop with this incredibly impressive market model.
Great. Thank you so much. So we actually have a lot of questions that just came in, so I'll try to hit a couple of them quick. This is kind of a combo question. If I'm either a current EMBA student or a current Scheller student, and I'll kind of tie in the next question, or alumni, how might I interact? How does CDL interact with any of the existing programs, and/or if I'm an alumni, kind of how can I engage or get involved?
Jonathan, you want to take that since you focus on students much more than I do?
So if you're a student, I would recommend you go to the Tiger website at tiger.gatech.edu. That's the Georgia Tech website, and simply put Tiger in a dot before that. And you can learn about the website. In the interest of time, I'll simply direct you to the website. So if you're a student, please do that. If you're an alumnus, again, for all alumni, if you have ventures and you would like to interact, I would direct you to the Creative Destruction Lab website. That's creativedestructionlab.com. Creative Destruction Lab is one word. There are applications there. You can see the numerous streams, the sites. You can learn much more about the program, and we do look for applications, of course.
And then Jonathan, just to tie off on that last one, what if I'm what if I'm an alum that wants to contribute, like not apply, but to contribute and help in some way? Is that on the website as well?
So right now, we really have no format for alumni to participate. We've discussed several ideas. We hope during the next year to release that. But right now, early in the stage, we really have nothing for alumni, but we would welcome alumni support.
Okay, great. So I know we're at time. We do have a few other questions in the chat, and I can actually just kind of take those offline and make sure those questions are answered. But I do want to thank you, Jonathan and Alex, so much for your time today. And just as a reminder to everybody, this session is recorded and it will be posted on the Scheller LinkedIn page. So please visit and share that as much as you would like. And we will be back for our next session in February. So thank you so much for your time today, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, Coogan.
Thanks, Coogan.